Okay, good afternoon. This video is probably long overdue. Sometimes I build up the idea of a video in my head and then I get it to the point where I'm reluctant to even do it because I figure that nothing that I can do or say will live up to like what I want to do with it. So, anyway, that being said, I am in the mood actually to do this one, and so I thought since I am in the mood, I really should try to do it and get it done. This is the League of Champions and Presidents. These are the 10 teams that historically have either played in it across two seasons or are about to play in it beginning in season three. And this is my longest running project technically, and one that I've really put a lot of pride into. And anyway, I thought, yeah, what I would do is just have the 10 teams here on display. The last two there, they're about to enter the league actually for the third season. They've yet to play in it so far, technically. But and then I thought I would use these cards as well, just to kind of remind myself of different things that I want to say as I'm going through it. So there it is. It is the League of Champions and Presidents. The reason it is called that is because it is comprised. Basically, there are two criteria to get into the league. You either have to have won the Stanley Cup championship or been the President's Trophy winner for that season. There are two divisions in the league, two conferences or divisions. I separate the teams into two groups of three. It's a six-team league. Let me see if I'm getting ahead of myself. Kind of a little bit, but anyway, I'll circle back if I need to. So there is a division or conference, if you want to call it, of champions with three teams and then three President's Trophy winning teams that did not win the Stanley Cup. A motto that I used prior to season two that I think I will retain into the third and ensuing seasons, however many I end up doing, is a shot at redemption, another shot at glory. And please also, in an aside, forgive the rattle and hum and some of the noise outside. I like to keep the window open. I like to keep the fresh air flowing through. I don't like fans and air conditioners. I try to avoid them as long as possible. Eventually, it will become inevitable here. It gets incredibly humid here in the summertime. But I like to, I don't know if you call it fresh air being in the big city, but I do like to have the air circulating in the very least. So anyway, I think I have a pretty dominant voice. I can talk over it. So just please bear with, what little background there is. So sorry, back to the League of Champions and Presidents. Goodness, I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say next about that? So yeah, the three. The motto: a shot at redemption, another shot at glory. So another shot at glory for the championship winners, and obviously a shot at redemption for the teams that won the President's Trophy that season. Probably were even favored going into the playoffs to win the Stanley Cup, but did not. So. Yeah, so basically, a bit of a background actually for me for playing tabletop hockey. It started out like it did with a lot of people with Stratomatic. I picked this game up. I was 10, 11 years old, youth, early adolescent, um, and played that for a few years and then just kind of, being a teenager and just kind of put it aside for whatever reason for a while. In hindsight, I should have kept going with it and kept playing it. But anyway, a couple decades went by and kind of got the hankering to play in the off season there a few seasons ago in between NHL seasons for some hockey in the off season. Knew I didn't want to go back to video games. I mean, I played video games in this era too. Given my age, I'm aging myself here, but this would have been back in like the mid 90s as, the 11, 12-year-old kid playing Stratomatic up till I was about 14. And then, yeah, a couple of decades went by and I, uh, I started watching these videos by Peter Miller and a few other YouTubers as well. Tabletop Sports Delaware had a Stratomatic video. Al Wilson had one. Al Wilson had some akin videos anyway. Again, I have to be careful here. I might be misconstruing some of the particulars, but Peter Miller obviously a big one that figured into it because he's played just about every hockey game. He has like 30 of them, as he said, and he has at least a video or two for most every game that he has played. And so that was kind of getting me through there in the off season, in the NHL off season, the sort of filling the fix. And I was curious actually to get back into Stratomatic, but of course I'm on another continent now. I've since gone home and brought back some of the Stratomatic components, not all of them, to play a full game. It's more now for design purposes and just kind of looking and taking influence from without trying to, flat out rip off, because I wouldn't want to rip off Stratomatic anyway. Uh, I wouldn't want to rip off anything, but especially let alone Stratomatic. So. Um, but I got curious to play a number of hockey games, and this will actually figure into a series that I'm planning on doing, and hopefully the not too distant future either, about designs. What I started doing actually was looking at a number of games, most all of which he would have played, and I went, okay, I like A, B, and C, but I don't like D and E, or I like A. You get the idea. I did that with a lot of hockey games that I've since acquired, played, and thoroughly enjoyed. But at the time, I decided I'm going to design the ultimate. Like, I had this epiphany, this little light bulb moment where I went, okay, there's all of these games. I like A, B, and C, but I don't like D and E. And of course, this was just me watching them on YouTube and looking at stuff online, looking at written descriptions of them, not actually having played them myself. I've since learned that I was wrong and that you really, in my opinion anyway, you have to take a game and play it a good half dozen to a dozen times at least, I think, before you can really weigh in on it. So, um, I I started designing my own game, and this was the first ever name for it. Hash is an acronym. I mean, there are hash marks in hockey, and it was an acronym for Hockey Action 600. I had this fantastic, wonderful idea. My sarcasm is dry, so I'm saying that sarcastically, that I could do this game that would have everything that the game of hockey could possibly offer in the tabletop and just 600 rolls. So it was an acronym for Hockey Action 600. I'll get into that again in the future if I do like a designs series where I just kind of humiliate myself a little bit and I show I will say this, I do think that it looks pretty. It looks pretty. I have some pretty cool card designs, I think, for this and a few other of my games, but looks can be deceiving because, man, when you get that to the tabletop and try to roll it out, it just, oh, it falls flat on its face, like me when I, started learning trying to skate. It really does that early. So, anyway, but as I was designing, I realized like it's going to be a while, for me to actually complete this game. And I just really wanted to play some games. And so Paradise, I mean, it's free to download. And then you had to, and especially too, where I'm on another continent, I'm not in North America, and I have a pretty unshippable address, especially now that I'm self employed. Before, when I worked at a school or like a bigger company here, I could just have anything shipped from North America to that address. I've since since moving out, and I don't know, for the what the heck, off the grid a little bit perhaps. I've had wedding anniversary cards and other presents that were sent close to a decade ago that I may or may not ever see. Probably the latter. So I'm very reluctant to order. I've also had some merchandise that I've ordered from YouTubers as well that has, in another aside, that's just gone missing, just never arrived. So. And a few other things. And so for me, PDF is really important. Print and play is really important. I need to be able to print and play that. I'll probably revisit that in a moment, or knowing me, 50-50, I'll forget to. But I started playing Paradise, and another mistake that I made in the early going, and I think I've talked about this in a Paradise video, is that I rolled a few dice. I was on my way to head out somewhere for the day with my wife to a board game cafe, actually, across the city to try it out. She's really cool like that. She doesn't like hockey, but she likes other tabletop and board games, and so do I when I'm not playing hockey. I played a little bit of Paradise, and by the time that I was on the train on my way home that day, I decided I was going to replay the entire 1963-64 NHL season campaign. Played a few exhibitions between some of the 2004 World Cup teams and the 63-64 teams, or an all-star team that I assembled with that season, just to kind of get the feel and flow of the game, and then away I went with the season project. Talked about it before, burnt out on it about 83 games into it. That actually could figure into another card that I have. But so the next part of that story would be, I was starting to vent and lament, not lament, just vent about some of the, and I love Paradise, but some of the frustrations that I was having with the game. I will say this, Paradise, maybe more than other hockey games, if you're having a low scoring game with Paradise and playing it as it's intended to be played, the actual original game without any modifications, it can feel, at least to me, it did, a little like banging your head against the wall at times, just like, come on, roll a six, he's a star, roll a six, you get the goal. But oh goodness, the goalie's a -1. Now I have to roll a 5. I'm rolling every number but a 5 here, that type of thing. And oh, I can't get that white 6 to get the line changes in the 2-minute increment, and or 2-minute increment's not the right word, interval, I guess. But you get the idea, hopefully. So I did have it in mind, even as I was going through the 63-64 season, that for whatever reason, I'd like to take, like, not an original 6, but call it like an ultimate 6. League of, that actually would have been a good name for it besides League of Champions and Presidents, the Ultimate Six. So, and I was going to do that with Paradise actually when I was still in my Paradise honeymoon. And I was going to take five NHL teams plus the late 70s Jets because I know my father, being a hockey aficionado, he always sort of talks about this as a what if. Like, what if the Jets could have crossed over circa 77, 78, 79 before they were somewhat decimated by the NHL when they joined the NHL in 79, 80? Um, what if that team, with like the veteran Bobby Hull and the emerging European talent, if they could have played against, like this team, for instance, and how that might have played out. And so I had the Oilers in mind, a few other teams, the '80s Oilers, and a few other teams in mind as well. And I was going to do that with Paradise. And then hopefully I'm not giving away any unwanted, like hopefully he is okay with, I'm pretty sure that he is. So PJet is also Seals fan one. I've figured out. I think it's not a well guarded secret or anything if it was ever supposed to be one. And I've really across the past couple of years, in a variety of instances, I've really taken not so much advice. I don't know. I mean, he might have been, imparting some wisdom, giving me some advice. But basically, what PJet says, or Seals fan one, what Seals fan one says, I put a lot of stock into, because these decades that I was away from it, he was playing it, and Peter Miller was playing it, and so. I remember at one point he said to me, like, Shootout and Hockey Blast are two simple games, like simple akin to Paradise, but with a little more depth to them. And I say that reluctantly because, again, I really like Paradise as well. I really do, especially as a two-player game. Very underrated. But Shootout and Hockey Blast were the two that's recommended. And so, circling back for a moment, I look to acquire both games. Of these two games, one's a little more PDF print and play friendly. Hockey Blast, you can get the teams and print and play them, but the game itself, well, that's going to be a story for a future video, actually. So I got the Shootout, great teams of great GTOP, the great teams of the past. Um, I think just set one initially, and yeah, just the first set, and then I ended up acquiring the second set. I want to say that the first six, the season one of the League of Champions and Presidents, was comprised entirely of that first set. Doesn't really matter a whole lot, but yeah, the six great teams of the past, 24. I decided on a 24 game season, and again, I really like what the same PJet and Seals fan once said. I don't know if he's trying to discourage me, but it actually encouraged me. He's like, 24 game season, anything can happen, and I thought, that's what I want. So I really like those tight down to the wire playoff races and so on. Whereas maybe, if I played out the entire season, Montreal, for instance, to jump ahead here for a moment, finishing 10-9-5 and almost being freaking relegated in season two, coming about that close after winning the cup in season one, and then Boston, who were in game seven in the final in season one, again getting ahead of myself, I guess, like I do best sometimes, being relegated after the second season. But a 24 game season, it's a 72 total game schedule, because Paradise, it was about game 83, I want to say, that I burnt out on it. And so when I was coming up with the schedule for League One of the Champions and Presidents, I thought I want to avoid that. I don't want to, I want to like the game. I don't want to burn out on it. So 72 total games. I actually played about, I can't remember now, somewhere 20 to 30 games at least, maybe even a little more, of best of seven series between some teams I knew I didn't want to use for season one. So that's where the 94 Rangers played into it, and I had the 2006 Carolina Hurricanes. I might throw them into a future off-season tournament, actually, that Hurricanes team there. It was quite strong, and I'd have to say probably, just going on rough memory here, and again getting off topic, but rental heavy. Like, they already had a good team, but man, some of the rentals they had on that team in '06, if I'm remembering it correctly. And of course, they got by Montreal Canadiens. So, but 72 total games and the 24 game season, regular season. And here's the other thing too, because again, you buy two sets of 46 teams. You don't want to use the same same six teams every single time, or play the same matchups again over and over and over. So I relegate the bottom two teams. Four teams make the playoffs, and that's another thing that I didn't write down that I must, if I can say so myself, I really like. I put the two division winners in the top two playoff seedings, and then the two wild cards, and they could come from one division or the other or both. It's basically division winner one with the most points against the lowest wild card seed, and then the highest wild card seed plays the lowest division winner seed. And I've since done that for other projects as well with my own customized leagues. It's a format that I really enjoy, and frankly, I think it's a good one. I can understand why they don't do it in real life. One advantage of the tabletop is I don't have to worry about logistics, travel costs, things like that. But I relegate the two teams that miss the playoffs. And then what I do is I do an off-season qualifying tournament. I take it depends. It actually the way that I have it formatted, it is possible that say all presidents or all champions for a season could qualify for playoffs, in which case I would only need to do one of these tournaments in the off season, because it is possible that two teams from a division would be relegated, in which case that would actually reduce the length of this tournament because I'd just go to the finals and then the two finalists would enter the league for the following season. It hasn't happened yet after two seasons, but it's there in case, if need be. So off-season qualifying tournaments, Tournament of Champions, it's four teams, 6 game round robin, and then best of three, I guess, for the semis and the final. And I do one for the champions and the presidents if need be, and so far that has been the case. Season one, and I'm just doing like a cursory look at. I thought about like getting the tab book and going through some stuff and showing you the My Stats online with its 1,500 ads if you're not paying for it. But I decided that I would just avoid all of that and just do like cards and chat. Bob Orr winning the scoring title, I thought was a remarkable storyline. The 71 Bruins actually struggled out of the gate. I remember the first handful of games, Esposito was doing nothing. They lost their first 3 or 4 straight. Again, just going on memory here. And Bobby Orr, I remember he was sort of the one, shining the bright light there with Boston's dim start. He had 8 points in 6 games. And then he went on a tear for the next 18 games. And if my math is correct, he had 34 points. He passed Gretzky. He passed Lemieux. He went on a tear for that 18-game stretch. And he ended up winning the scoring title that season with 42 points in that 24-game campaign. Whoops, that's right back there. And I thought that was pretty remarkable that he could do that. And I really like the way that actually the all-time teams, the way that it's balanced out. And so I've seen in ensuing tournaments and stuff, somebody like, say, a Pavel Dimitra or a Patrick Ilias, somebody who they were no offensive star, but in a real defensive, the dead puck era, as they say. And I like that this all-time, again, with this sort of, in Mike Owens, you call it the normalization. There's a bit of that here, too, where these teams are regulated across eras so that they can... teams again that played in a defensive era, you'll actually see their numbers amplified, if anything. Although again, they have some pretty stark opposition defensively. And then maybe the Gretzky's and the Lemieux and the 2 or 3 point games. They don't come all the time. I remember Gretzky; he had 21 goals in 24 games in season one. It's pretty good for him or anybody. And he finished with 36 points, third overall. It was Mario Lemieux. He had 39, I want to say 18, 19 goals and about 39 points, or passed him. And the Bruins, who struggled out of the gate, took the Habs. They were up I think they won game one. I want to say they were up 2-1 in the series, though I think it was 3-2 actually. Habs came back, made it 2-1. Boston 3-2. Fantastic ebb and flow back and forth series. And honestly, when Boston got up 3-2, I was even planning season 2 redemption for Montreal, kind of storylines in my head. I really thought the Bruins would eliminate them. I really did. And then Montreal won game 6, but it was all close. And then game 7, overtime. Yeah, Steve Shutt kind of slammed the door on this being an epic game. He scored a minute into OT, but still so much. I mean, can you really ask for more? What better could you ask for? Season 1 concluded with game 7 overtime. Also, just to kind of backtrack for a moment, skate backwards here for a few seconds. Edmonton and Pittsburgh, to see who would qualify for the playoffs or be out of it. There were all kinds of scenarios, actually. If this team wins, then this team advances based on their goal differential and record against one another. There were all kinds of tiebreakers about to come about. I think I actually had to go back and refine my tiebreakers just because this was so close. I had to make sure that I had something uniform and in place. And Edmonton and Pittsburgh, and I remember the final regular season game, Mario Lemieux scoring the go-ahead goal in period three. I think 3-2 was like the final score, and Lemieux single-handedly eliminated Gretzky and the Oilers in that one. Yeah. Anyway, that's that season one. I guess I already got into the finale of before circling back. Season two, I will remember most for the Bossy anomaly because I exchanged emails back and forth with a good buddy of mine, a hockey aficionado who does not play tabletop hockey. He's not into that, but still from time to time he'll give it a curious glance, and I'll nudge him and bug him. It's an excuse to stay in touch with him as well. Me being way over here and him being there. Very very long time friend now, a few decades going back. That makes me feel so old. About 2.5 decades. Anyway, so I one thing that he was remarking when I was sending him some updates about the League of Champions and Presidents was, what's wrong with Mike Bossy? He's averaging like less than half a goal a game. Uh, Bossy saved it up for the playoffs in season two. If I recall correctly, 15 goals in and 24 points in 12 playoff games. Bossy went on an absolute tear. Decimated the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that same buddy back home I just referred to is a Penguins fan. Bossy destroyed the Penguins, shoved a dagger into the heart of the 77 Canadians. I added Lemieux there as a bottom note because Lemieux had a pretty solid season. I want to say roughly 30 something points in the 24 games. He got above 30 points again. Lemieux had very similar numbers to season one, very consistent. So he is actually now the league's all-time leading scorer through 2 seasons. Somebody like Gretzky would say, yeah, I'd like to have another regular season to be able to say something about that. Your 83, 84 Oilers, their 99, have to qualify to get back into it. And they didn't quite do it this time in the off-season tournament. Another thing, actually, is that when a team is relegated, I don't let them play in the immediate off-season playoffs. So it's not like, okay, Boston, you're gone. You're going to play in the season two off-season tournament. I don't do that. There's like a penalty of sorts where they're gone from the league for 1 season. Ideally, I'd like to work into it this storyline where like this team is really hungry to get back into it now. Seemed to be going that way for Detroit actually until Vancouver showed up in the playoff, the final there. So anyway, the Bossy anomaly with the Islanders and Lemieux. And season two, I was going to say with MYI. So again, Montreal, they dropped to 10-9-5. I remember they went 16-6-2 in season one. And even that I thought was remarkable because this is a team that in the real life NHL lost 8 games total in an 80-game campaign. And just really to show how tough the rest of the league is, they lost 6 in 24 games, whereas they went 8-8 with only 8 losses in 80 in real life. They lost 9 and tied 5 and won only 10 in season two. They really looked human. They really looked vulnerable. They really did. So much so that the Islanders passed them and actually finished first overall in the Champions Division in season two. And like I said with a recent recap, my reaction sort of going into the postseason was, well, that's cute. Because I had to be careful about that because the Islanders they were eliminated in 5 games in the season one postseason in round one by the Montreal Canadiens. History would not repeat. The Islanders they were down 3-2 in the series. They won about the flukiest game I've ever played prior to that one where Boston defeated Montreal. The other, all of my fluky games wind up in halves losses. Basically, they're highly correlated. Anyway, the Islanders, it's up on the channel. They, for 40 minutes, and it's a good thing because the Habs, potted a few unanswered in the final 20. But they put a 6-goal cushion, just a whooping on Montreal in that 7th game. Sorry if I've spoiled it for anyone. It is on the channel. They destroyed Montreal. Bossy had a hand in that, not just in that game, but throughout the series. So that was season two. And so I'm getting ready to play season three. I do want to get through what I've renamed. I was calling it the Tony series. That's a good name too, though, when you think about it. So Tony, as was pointed out to me in a comment, I hadn't thought of it at the time, but I was like, I'm going to call the winner the Tony Award winner, which, which in the New York Broadway area, the live theater or whatever capital makes sense. So this is the Tony Tourney, the teams of New York, which I will do prior to season 3 of the League of Champions and Presidents. I'm going to play this. I'm probably going to start playing this off camera today, later today. And this is just a 6 game series, so this will be over with soon. Probably, depending on how things are going, I think I'll take the final one, maybe 1 or 2 games. We'll see what happens anyway. I did also say yesterday that I'm just going to start doing whatever I want whenever I feel like doing it. So, in terms of schedule, organization, what to expect and when, you cannot look forward to that here. That's just not what I am about. So, anyway, this is the League of Champions and Presidents. And if Stratomatic planted a seed, and if Paradise did a heck of a lot to water it, grow it into a sprout or whatever, in conjunction with Peter Miller, me designing my own game that just really fell flat, through some early trials. I think it looks nice, but oh man. And I think I've evolved a lot as a designer since then. And it's because of playing games like Shootout Hockey and all the other games that I've played, and just so much, I could have had Dave Gardner's name up on these cards as well. And there are a few other people. You should know who you are. So, but anyway, I guess what I was going to say is, this planted a seed. This here all got me back into the hobby here, this triad. And then this happened and I was gone. Once I got into Shootout and started playing Shootout, the last trip that my wife and I were able to go on, actually just before the COV died, D19 took over and really just, took over the world. We escaped to Taiwan for a week, and I didn't go to Taiwan to play Shootout Hockey, but I have to say, on the plane there and on the way back, and then at the end of the day, because she goes to bed a little earlier than I do. And so for that hour or two in the lobbies of places that we stayed in a few different places in a few different cities while we were there for that week, a few days in each one. And, I'd find the nice spot in whatever lobby and just sit there, with my cup of whatever, and play an hour or two, sometimes even maybe a little more Shootout. And it was a fantastic thing. I'd really look forward to it at the end of the day. And so once this happened, I was gone. And this unrelated will figure into a story in a future video that, once again, much like this video, I just have to be in the right mood to do, just for whatever reason. Read into it however you will. Just have to be able to talk about it. So just to recap, season 1, it was the 7, not really recap, but just, I guess this is one more thing that I could add. Season 1 was the Montreal Canadiens of 77, the Islanders of 82, the Oilers of 84. Trying to get that to focus better. And this comprised the Champions Division there for season 1. And then it was the 71 Bruins, 93 Penguins. These teams did not qualify. I just kind of picked what I thought were 6 of the best or most exciting and dynamic teams of all time from a certain era. I have a hard time. I don't know about anybody else. I can see Howie Morenz sharing ice with Maurice Richard, and maybe Maurice Richard sharing the ice with Guy Lafleur. But there's something about Morenz and Guy Lafleur, I just can't I don't know, the equipment was too different and the game was too different, and those lineups in the 20s and 30s were just too small. So it's I can only, just how I'm wired, I can only do 25, 30-year gaps at most. In this, though, this would have been a 50-year one, should they were actually playing off against the 2013 Chicago Blackhawks. So some exceptions to that. I guess call it latter half of the 20th century. I like to put that all in one box there. I don't know. Anyway, 71 Bruins, 93 Penguins, and 96 Detroit Red Wings. I'd like to have the 2018 Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that'd be a pretty fun team. Just throwing that out there. Hint, hint, John, nudge, John K. This was season 1, and then season 2, the 2 teams actually that were eliminated by a hair, because Detroit, they had struggled out of the gate as well. They really went on a tear in the second half of that season 1 there. Season 2 qualifying for it was Philadelphia in the the President's Division. That was the 85 Flyers. And it was the 2000 New Jersey Devils qualifying for the Champions Division. The Devils were relegated. They did not survive season 2. The Flyers, again, final day, much like the Penguins in season one, they managed actually to boot out the 71 Boston Bruins with some spoiler wins there late. So Philadelphia will remain in it. And so for season three, it'll be these four teams here because I see them running out of time. I think after 30 minutes, this camera craps out. And then Toronto will be joining the Champions Division. They won the Tournament of Champions there, the season two off-season tournament. And the 2011 Vancouver Canucks came up with a couple of big games here against the 96 Red Wings, who looked like they were the incumbent. And so season three of the League of Champions and Presidents will be these six teams that you see right here. And there will be more on this over on Delphi, sooner than later. Anyway, I see this is now half an hour long, so maybe this was another reason I was reluctant to do this one in the first place. I just knew once I got started on it, I'd have trouble stopping. So anyway, anytime that you give to this, even if it's just a little bit, I realize this is a really long video, but I mean, it's all good. It all counts towards something, and I do appreciate it. So thank you very much. Thanks. Bye for now.